Have you ever wondered why a simple, catchy story about the economy can just take off, even when a mountain of data says it's just not true? Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world.
All right, so to really get a grip on this, let's use a metaphor. Think of an ideology as a kind of operating system for your brain. It's not the apps you're consciously running, the specific opinions you have. No, it's the OS itself, running silently in the background, deciding which ideas feel natural and which ones just feel, well, incompatible. It's what makes one argument seem like common sense and another feel totally alien. And most of the time, we don't even know it's happening.
And this quote from T.E. Home just hits the nail on the head. See, the most powerful ideas aren't the ones we're actively debating. They're the ones we've already accepted without question. They become the invisible lens we see everything else through. You don't notice the lens, right? You just see the world it shows you.
So you might be asking, who's creating these stories? Well, Professor Steve Fuller offers this really great model of lions and foxes. The lions, they're your established elites, governments, major media outlets, big institutions. Their whole game is to control the main story, to maintain the status quo that keeps them in charge. Then you've got the foxes. These are the agile outsiders, the challengers, maybe a popular podcaster or a YouTuber who built a massive following by poking holes in the official narrative. Their incentive is to find those inconvenient truths the lions are trying to paper over and use them to build their own influence.
But here's where it gets really wild. It isn't just about which story is being told, it's about our fundamental human need to fit in with our tribe. You've probably heard of the Asch conformity experiments, where people would look at two lines that were clearly different lengths, but if everyone else in the room said they were the same, they'd often just go along with it, ignoring what their own eyes were telling them. But get this, the crazy part, revealed by brain scans, is that people aren't just lying to fit in. The social pressure actually changes their perception. They literally start to see the world the way the group does.
Okay, so what happens when you mix a powerful ideological OS with this intense social pressure to conform? You start to get some very predictable and very strange outcomes. And the first one is that our shared memory of huge events gets completely twisted. A perfect example, the 2008 financial crisis. The reality was a super complex mess of private banking failures, crazy financial derivatives, and deregulation. But a much simpler story took root, one that fit a pre-existing OS. Just like Paul Krugman describes here, a narrative spread that blamed the whole thing on the government forcing banks to make bad loans. It was simple, it confirmed what a lot of people already believed, and it was sticky. And just like that, it rewrote history for millions of people.
And that leads directly to the second big outcome. Think about it. When the so-called lions, the experts, the institutions, fail to see a disaster like 2008 coming, what happens to their credibility? It just evaporates. And that creates a huge power vacuum.
And this is exactly who rushes in to fill that vacuum. This line from the Brexit campaign, I think people in this country have had enough of experts. That wasn't just some offhand comment. It was a tactical masterstroke that tapped directly into that collapsed trust. Populist leaders step up and appeal to common sense and gut feelings, setting themselves up as the champions of the people against a corrupt, out-of-touch elite. Their stories feel real because they reject the complicated mess of the experts who, let's face it, got it wrong.
So here's the bottom line. What we're really looking at here is a genuine crisis in perception. This isn't just about fake news or somebody being wrong on the internet. It's a structural gap that's opened up between the simple stories we tell ourselves about how the world works and the deeply complex, hidden mechanics of our economic and political systems. The map we're all using just doesn't match the territory anymore. Which, of course, brings up the big question. If this ideological OS is so full of bugs that it leads to financial meltdowns and a total loss of trust, why on earth do we keep using it? Why is it so hard to get rid of? Well, it's because the system is incredibly good at defending itself. First, there's identity. Our beliefs are tied up in who we are. To admit a core belief is wrong feels like a personal attack, a threat to our place in our community. Second, societies just plain need a shared story to function. Even a flawed map can feel better than no map at all when you're trying to get everyone moving in the same direction. Third, our entire modern media landscape, especially online, is basically designed to reward simple, emotional, viral stories over complex, nuanced truth. And finally, the institutions at the top, they have every reason to prop up the dominant narrative because their own authority and legitimacy depend on it. And this is the real kicker. This whole narrative machine isn't some sideshow we can just ignore. It's not just culture. It is wired directly into the most critical systems that run our entire society.
It completely shapes our electoral politics, where the best storyteller often beats the best policy analyst. It's the literal business model for social media companies that need viral narratives to drive engagement and ad revenue. It infects financial markets, where a powerful story can create a bubble that pure data never could. And ultimately, it's the bedrock of institutional trust itself.
So after all this, what's the one practical thing you can take away? Here's the tell. Pay close attention to the moment when a really compelling narrative is being used to replace a clear map of incentives. The next time you hear a simple story explaining some massive, complex event, just stop and ask yourself, okay, but who was incentivized to do what? Shifting your focus from the story to the incentives, that's the first step to seeing past the OS and getting a clearer picture of how the system really works. So what does the world look like when we stop asking what's the story and start asking what are the incentives? Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.